Hey everybody, welcome to Gardens, the Untold Story. I'm your host, Ken Somerville, with my co-host, Andy Lopez, the Invisible Gardener. And Andy, we've talked about worms before, but we've never really gotten deep into starting a worm farm. And that's what you wanted to talk about today, is starting your own worm farm. And I know you got a bunch of videos and stuff, which we're going to get to, but Andy, why do you even want a worm farm?
Well, we talk about biology. So in the years I've been doing this, let's see, okay. In the years I've been doing this, I discovered worms.
Mm-hmm.
I used to make compost tea, right? You make compost, really good compost. It's a lot of work making compost, right? And it really is. Just tossing and all that kind of stuff. And so I discovered, I don't know how I did it. I think because my garden was rich in worms. I had a lot of worms in my garden. And then somewhere along the lines, I read about worm farming, and I thought, oh, well, if I can do a little worm farm and get the leachate out of it, and then I'll give it a try, see what that does. Because I always tell people that the richest compost comes from earthworms and elephants. And elephants, right? Yeah. It's hard to have an elephant in your backyard, but hey, I can have a nice worm farm. Easy enough. It's really simple. It still works, but not as much. And on top of that, the worms are probably one of the best sources of this particular type of microbes that come from the worms. Leighton will tell you about it, because he also uses he has a friend with the farm, the aquarium, the farm. Where he grows fishes and uses the fish poop. Still doing that, because that's a good source. Any animal in the long run is a good source, but I really like, and interesting too is, but the biodynamic real standard, the biodynamic person never mentions worm or worm farms, at all. They make their own preparation, but I'm sure he would have loved the worm farm. So that's how I got started doing the worm farming, and I can make the liquid. I found that the biology of the worms that the worm leachate produces, it's very, very high Sandro. It's very, very copacetic with what I do in terms of spraying, in terms of giving it trace minerals and giving other kinds of biology. And it really works really, really super well. And it's really easy to do. And anybody can do it. Worth having let's see what Silly says. I like that. I can't read and talk at the same time.
With having a worm farm just for the worm castings, there are so many uses in the garden, from the castings to the leachate.
Exactly. So one of the additional benefits is, you get a lot of worm castings, and I also get this very, very rich earthworm compost at the end, because one of the things about the worm farm is you have to take it out and put some new stuff in, and what you take out is absolutely amazing, because you can make tea out of it forever. You can, and it's full of the worms of the eggs. And so one of the things that I don't have the heart to do is to drown all the eggs so I can get the liquid. So when I get the compost, I will put it back in the ground, because they will hatch. You have more eggs. So I'm getting to the point where when I take out my worm farm, when I clean it, I leave about half of it in there, because there's definitely more eggs are going to hatch. So that's why I use the worms. And it's real easy to use, very simple. You can have a tiny little bin if you need it, just a small amount.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like, Andy, you're using a watering trough that you would see in for cattle or horses, where you don't have to have anything that large. There's all kinds of different styles, stacking styles, stuff that is just, you build your own out of a couple of totes you buy from Walmart. The potential is amazing for how you can raise worms. But it's that product at the end. It's those beautiful worm castings, so full of life, that is helping your plants. I actually I put dry it out and put it in gel caps, and I use that for my own gut biome because that microbiology really helps to put us back in balance inside of ourselves. But go on, Andy. Like as I said, there's so many ways to have a worm farm, but what are you feeding worm farms?
So listen, so you reminded me of why I started doing the worms, because I started with earthworm castings. See, and it's also a lot easier to get worms than elephants.
No, that's how do you get your own elephant? Well, let's see here. That's a complicated question.
You basically sneak into a zoo and what do they call it? Steal an elephant or something. Why hijack an elephant, right? Somebody will call the cops and say there's the guy there with an elephant in the backyard. And I understand you're missing an elephant. He's the guy to stay. That's how I got started with it, because I remember earthworm castings. Mm-hmm. And earthworm castings are so rich and powerful. I decided, well, if the earthworm castings are good, I want more I want worms. So I started with that. And I actually made a raised bed for worms. I started a little worm farm. And I had my vegetables grow in the worm farm, and then what would happen too is that the worm farm that I made had a bottom that when any liquid drained out, I would get the liquid.
Yeah, which is what we call leachate or worm juice or whatever.
Yeah, I call it worm juice, but that's how it started. So basically, it was a raised bed, that had a bottom that drained. And the reason why I started doing that is because I remember now. I'm having flashbacks of my youth.
That's a couple of days ago, yeah.
A couple of days ago. Anyway, I lived in New York City, and I don't know if I mentioned that I garden on the roof.
I don't remember you talking too much about New York City. I know you wouldn't have been staying there because it's way too cold there for Andy in the winter time,
Well, that's another story, because during the winter time they would send me to Puerto Rico or Cuba.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, well, my dad's from Cuba, my mother's Puerto Rico, and they would ship me off to Cuba or Puerto Rico, but. I don't know if I told you that, because I had a couple of raised beds on the roof, and I must have told you this because I had a tomato plant that grew over the side, and here's I don't know how many stories. You ever see a tomato fall down from very high storage?
They make ketchup. Yeah, you're making ketchup.
People thought I was dropping tomatoes on their heads, and I did that because I did that high. GT Junior grows in Alaska, and so I did that so they wouldn't drip down, and water wouldn't drip on the roof. So I basically, so I had a bottom that then I drained it out, because you figured you have to drain it out because otherwise it sits in water, and I started using that, and I realized that I can just pour it back onto the plants or feed it to other plants, because in New York, when I was young, I didn't have a spraying service there then. Okay. So that's how I got started. So I got started real early with worms. And I've discovered, one of the things that I don't really mention, I have a secret. And if you guys are going to have to wait until the end till I tell you.
Before you say anything about the secret, I want to bring up to everybody that for our contest today, the hashtag worm farm. I just put it up, but hashtag worm farm. Gonna get you an entry for the today's draw.
What's going to be the draw? You didn't tell me about
Andy Lopez's compost course, which is an online course, by the way. You can get a free course from Leighton Morrison on composting in his methodology.
Gee whiz, that sounds good to me. I wish somebody had told me about that. So listen, guys, I am going to share a screen because I have and remember, towards the end, I'm going to tell you I think it was the most. See, I learned what type of worms to use. All worms are not the same,
Well, that's very, very true.
Right. So there's one particular type that's absolutely amazing to use. And that's the one I'm going to turn you on to. There's actually two. One is really, 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 really super amazing, absolutely wonderful. The other one's just amazing. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I almost clicked on Leave Studio.
Oh, then I would have went, Andy's taking a vacation again.
Me too.
I've
Okay,
done
so
it, so I can't say much. Okay.
let me see. Oh, I got it here. There you go. Okay, so you guys can see this, right? Can you see
Not
this?
yet. Now we can see it because I just brought it up on screen.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. So this is and it goes back way back because I have it done. It, you know, the pictures are all done in order. So this is a long time ago.
Hey,
Actually,
Andy, hold up, because we're talking about which worms you prefer. And Ghetto Hippie wants to know: did he say red wigglers as your
that's only.
favorite worm?
I didn't say that's the red wigglers, but there are red wigglers. It's in the name, yes, but there's also a beginning of it. There are different types of red wigglers. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's 2 or 3 red wigglers, and then you've got African night crawlers, the jumping Mexican jumpers. There's literally dozens of different
Okay, I'll
types
tell you
of
the
worms.
secret now is the African night crawlers,
Okay, African. You're using
and then
African night
and then
crawlers.
there's the European uh red wigglers, the wigglers, European
Yeah.
wigglers. Those two are the best ones to use. And African night crawlers are giant earthworms,
Mhm.
giant. They'll go
But
through this.
remember, guys, check out what type of bin you're using, and because some worms want to live deeper. You want a deeper worm bin, so before you buy worms, make sure you understand that. Go ahead, Andy.
Right.
Sorry.
That's why I got this particular one because I
Mhm.
basically use the African red wigglers, and the European ones are very good for being fairly deep. They all come up to the top to get food. The way you want to do it. So this is basically the cattle trough when I first got it
Mhm.
a long time ago, and you can see. And so I have it muted out, and I guess we're going in a circle here because it's not doing anything. That's,
Yeah.
that's kind of weird. Now it looks like it's crashing on me. Oh my God! Look, everything
Yeah.
is crashing.
Too
That's
many things open, Andy. Oh no.
that's kind of weird. That's interesting because it's not. Oh oh, can you see that now?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, I don't know what happened to that one. So anyway, this is when I came first came to Malibu, and you can see the worms in there. See, right?
yeah, yeah,
There's different layers of it. So this is one of the things I feed it. I'm gonna go. This is like a long time ago. I'm gonna start. I'll show you from the beginning how I put it together and the
yeah,
leaves and all this stuff. I don't know why it's showing up here. I couldn't change it, but you see the basically the structure of it. That's where I catch the leachate. It's sitting in sitting in canola oil. The reason why it's sitting in canola oil is because the ants love to eat it. This is what it looks like on the bottom. You see, I drilled a hose down there, and this is the frame that I built for it. The frame is tilted on one side. Let me see if I can do that again. The frame is tilted. Oh, I need to do a stop. Okay, so you see how on this side over here is higher than this side?
yeah.
I put an extra 2x4 on top, so it's tilted this way, right? So
Okay. Now,
I want
there was a question. Were those figs that you had in there in your
right,
image?
right. They're
Yeah.
figs.
Okay.
They'll eat anything except high, like they will not eat onions. So that's the frame. See, I did the frame 2x4s. I did 2 frames because I don't know why I did 2. And there's the holes I drilled so it drains out. That's all you
Yeah.
really need. A few holes to let it drain too much, and it just goes through too fast. And so this is the way it looks like inside. I like this because I produce a lot of leachate. I use about maybe 5 gallons a week easily. And there's a drain on the side. You don't
Yeah.
want to use it because it doesn't work really well. It is not in the right place, right? And you want to
Mhm.
keep it out of the sun. So it was inside this little building. This is Malibu when I first moved back into Malibu. In Florida, I had a different setup entirely, and I don't have any videos of those.
Okay.
And let me see. So again, there's the frame. I moved inside this little structure that I had here, and basically, if this will come down and protect it. You do not want it in the sun because a metal frame like that will heat up on you.
Oh yeah, definitely heat up and
So,
kill your worms.
so there it is. You can see how it's in a slant. See, it's
Yeah.
slanted. See, right? And then the only thing I did wrong was I needed to put, and what happened this way, you do not want to do it this way. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah, I can just see your mouse at the bottom by the legs. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
your legs.
it's sitting on the ground, right? And that's
Yeah.
what you don't want to do because the ants will come and climb up through there and they will eat all the worms up. All the worms will be dead. You see, so I did it wrong.
The eggs.
What?
They'll eat the eggs.
They eat the worms, don't they?
Not so much. They'll take the eggs, eat the eggs, and if
Well,
the worms aren't repopulating, of course they're going to die out.
well, okay, yeah, because I know that don't the ants eat meat?
As far as I know, they'll eat pretty much anything that they
Yeah,
can get their little chompers
yeah,
on.
they eat
I
the
don't know
worm.
that they're going to eat a full-sized worm.
Oh yeah, they go through the worms. They attack it.
Yeah,
I've seen them attacking the worms, and
cool.
I go, uh-oh, right. But they definitely take the eggs, and so this is
Yeah.
the structure of it, and you can see it still has. There's my first layer. Now the layer, with the way I do it is very different than most people do. I do layers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this thing on the drainage in the corner there. So
Yeah.
you want to learn how to layer, and that's part of the trick that I'm going to
What's
show you.
in your first layer,
Well,
Andy?
the order is not important. The order is not important
Okay.
because you can go leaves and then you can go soil. But you do want to layer it.
Okay, and that first layer was just leaf mulch, dried
that
out
was
leaf
just leaf
mulch.
mulch, pine needles, right? Those are pine needles there. So
Cool.
it depends whatever you have on hand. Then I had to go to the bathroom, so I might as well dumped it in the worm farm. No, so this is from I think it's a horse manure that I was using. You see, so
Sandra actually wanted to know: do you put manure in it?
That's right. That's what you do. It's one of the things you want to do. So if you're lucky to get a hold of it, like over here now, I don't get a hold of it too well, so I have to buy. Sometimes I'll get. What I do is when I buy compost, I make sure it has manure in it, which is not easy to do. A lot of times you can go. When I go to the store. It depends. They may have some. Certain times of the year they have cattle manure, right? That you can get. Or you can run around. So you just see there's another layer here that's starting to fill up. You see, and these are strips of paper, or there were strips of something. They look like strips, right? So here's another layer. See, so and this is the worms when I bought it. In this particular place, that's the worms.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 2,000 worms there. I ate a few. They're really delicious, fried. So those are the worms. I put them in there. And I did this one wrong too because what I should have done. There's a European nightcrawler. See.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where I got mine from. So
Uncle Jim's. Yeah.
What you need to do, and I don't want to give you bad ideas, but basically you really want to water the stuff before you put it in. Because I watered it really well after I did. But I realized that, and then there's a layer of soil that went in there too.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't water it, when they're in there, when they're already in there. But you really want to water, and you make sure that you have clean, filtered water. You want to buy a garden filter.
Yeah.
So here's another layer.
Ghetto Hippie wanted to know if you're adding sand to aid in digestion.
Right. So the sand. You'll find right there that I think this is sand.
Okay.
What? I think they had. I think. Let me see. There. See.
Okay.
Right. So that's a layer of sand, the type of sand that it's kind of soil, but it's really sand. That's how my sand was really dark. You don't really need to worry about sand so much if you're using cardboard, if you're using newspaper. Or if you use biochar, because I use biochar a lot nowadays instead of sand. But in the one I have here, I happen to have a hold of a lot of sand, and that's the canola oil. You see, I fixed it. I took it off, and I put the bottom on again. So, and you do that to protect it from the ants. So the ants will move. The other thing is the ants will move in. Next thing you know is you have an ant farm.
Yep. Yeah.
and the ants don't give you anything. And so that's how it looks there. It's protected. Once the top falls down, the sun
Yeah.
doesn't get on it. And this particular one, it's not insulated. You're going to see the different version that I finally end up with because it's a process of learning how to. I don't know what I'm doing there. I'm looking at myself in the face there. That's me. That was my thumb, my fingers. I don't know. I'm so weird. I am such a weird guy.
Oh, well, yeah, you're invisible. I mean, come on. So, Frosty, if you're talking about me, what I do is I collect my worm castings. I let them dry out. And I put them in gel caps. If you don't let them dry out, when you put moist worm castings in a gel cap, they'll turn to mush.
The gel cap will melt on you, right?
The biology just starts eating it up. Now, the other statement was from Sandra. When do you put in your minerals in like your rock dust, or are you adding?
You do not want to put rock dust into this mixture. The rock dust will kill them. It's too alkaline, and so what I do is I don't use it in that way. So when I spray, I add the rock dust. I make a liquid. My super seaweed, the base of it is rock dust.
Okay, so you're taking your leachate and then you're mixing it in it after, but it's not going into your worm bin at all.
So what you do, you put the so I put the leachate into one container and the rock dust into that container. So it's on the bottom, and then the leachate will work its way into the rock dust and eat the liquid, and then I strain it out, and that's what I spray.
Yeah.
So you do not want to add rock dust to your worm farm because your worms won't last very long. They won't last very long.
It's all about balance. You put in too much of one thing and it's no good for that balance. Guys, remember, worms aren't necessarily eating, the leaf. They're actually eating the biology that lives on top of that leaf, that's there consuming that leaf, breaking it down. The worms taking a hunk out, yes, but they're not after the leaf structure. They're after the biology living on that leaf structure.
And the biology is what we want in the leachate, and the biology is what we want on the spray. And then the idea is you have so I use I very rarely use rock dust now, only because I stopped making compost, because I would take the rock dust and add it to making the compost process, and then I would use that compost in the worm farm.
Well, and that actually takes it to a whole new level. If you have a good biologically active compost that's finished off and isn't hot anymore, and that's what you use as bedding for your worms, you're making the next level, not just worm castings. You're making vermicast, which is that next level, because there's so much more biology. The worms add biology to the compost.
That is absolutely correct. See, so in the old days when I was young and I lived in Florida, of course, I would make like 100 bags a week of compost. And that compost was so rich because I would add every type of animal manure I could get my hands on, right? And so this, by the way, this is my idea of how I would do the screen. So I bought the screen in the store, right? So the thing with the holes in the bottom of it, you don't want. So the first time I did it, the worms will go out through that bottom. They were on the bottom. They were drowning. They were drowning in the liquid. So I screwed up, and basically I cut it out. I decided, okay, I'm going to cut this little strip out here, and I'm going to put it where those little holes are at.
Yeah.
Right. So now what I do is I put the whole thing down. I just buy that little piece, put the whole thing down, throw everything on top of it, and that is much better than the little. Because what would happen, the worms would go right through underneath that little screen, and they would be in the liquid drowning. They'll be like, help me, I can't swim. I go, I told you not to go through the hole. And I have since changed the top. The top you want it to breathe, and they love all kinds of vegetables, you see. So, and this one of my earlier versions, and they will evolve as you do it, as you start. And of course, you absolutely have to filter out the water. Now, in the old days, I was using this particular one, and now I don't know if you folks have been watching, but remember when we had Michael Whitman?
Mm-hmm.
So he has his own Blue Sky filter, which I'm using now.
And
So
that's
this is the
Blue
one.
Sky Biochar, guys. So
Yeah, that guy.
blueskybiochar.com, and he's got these types of filters there.
Right. And so this is the one I was using before I met Michael, and now I'm using Michael's. And so again, this is the further. I'm still in this one place over here, and actually I had moved already, and now I'm giving it. Those are apples and
Mm-hmm.
different
Are
leaves.
you burying, underneath your top layer so you're not getting smell of like rotting
Yeah,
stuff?
you see me burying it, right? You see me burying it. You see, right? You see it
Yeah,
covers, right? Because I
yeah,
used to just throw it on top, and it'd be like flies, and it'd be like awful. And
rats coming to eat
yeah,
everything,
yeah, they
and
would come and say, "Oh, this is nice. Oh, this is nice." You know, I go, "No, I don't want it." So I've learned how to bury it, and you want it on the top. You don't want to have to dig. And there it is, leaching out. See.
yeah.
Now the people ask me, so what do we have to do to make the worms pee that much? Because they keep thinking it was pee, right? Worm piss. I said it's not worm pee. So here's the thing about the worms is that they're in this container, right? Normally they're in the ground, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
ground cleans itself out, right? It has a way of cleaning itself out. In the container, it doesn't. So you have all these worms doing stuff, and the soil, everything will become toxic if you don't give them a bath. That's in essence an easy, simple way to say it. Basically, you want to clean it out for them. This is how it looks like when it's set up before. And so I had moved it again. These poor worms had moved. The last thing worms like to do is move. It's like, hey guys, we're moving. Oh no, not again. So this is how it looks like at a different location. See, and I had it under the tree. I had it at Michelle's place. Hi, Michelle. I don't know if you're watching or not. I can't see.
Yeah.
I can't comment or anything because I can't see my comment thing. That's the only problem with sharing.
She says you bathe the worms.
Yeah, I bathe the worms. The worms take a bath, and then the liquid. It's like a tea, but it comes straight out to the container, and that's what I spray. So what I did, I have a shredder. I shredded the cardboard up. I shredded newspaper up. I would use and nowadays the newspaper and the shopping things are all recycled. They're all clean. You don't want to use. See, I would do all that, and then, of course there's more worms. You see that little container over there? Have more worms coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so there it is.
Speaking of worms, Scotty wanted to know: do you want a couple of kinds of worms or just one kind? And that is really dependent on the size. If you're in a small worm bin, go with the red wigglers. But in a situation like Andy has, you could actually, because the red wigglers like to stay on top or more on top, you could have two different types in that bin. But most people just go with the one type.
Right, they won't fight each other. They won't attack each other. So I've learned to by accident because I was using the night crawlers, and then the company ran out of night crawlers. So I started using the European wigglers, which are smaller. And then the night crawlers came back on their own. They started their babies hatched or whatever. So now I have night crawlers and European. It's not one big happy family, but I find that the night crawlers are definitely more on the bottom than the European are on the top. So it's like, hey, different layers, right? So
yep.
And so this is another version of it. And you can see I give them bananas and nothing rotten, right? This is not for composting. It's you want to feed them. If you give them rotten food, they will die. So I bought some more worms because a whole bunch that had died. They don't like to be moved. And then on top of that, it was raining. And I know somebody who was giving it some stuff that was really not ready for them to be eaten, so they will die. It's very expensive. You can order them online, and lots of places sell them. You see, isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
And kids love them. I used to, when I was in Florida, I used to not teach, but visit kids' place, and they love to squeeze. They love the worms, and you see the different layers that would go down in there. Basically, I would
Andy,
shred up. Yes, sir.
Do you remember the show The Little Rascals?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. For those of you guys that don't, it was just kids, young kids, like 7, 8, 9. And the one challenge I always remember is, here, eat this worm, and oh yeah,
You remember that?
oh yeah, that's always stuck in my head. The challenge of eat the worm.
So when I would go,
Speaking of Andy, no, stop. We're halfway through. We're gonna do the contest. So you
okay,
can pause your video if you want. But guys, for those of you guys that are late, you need hashtag worm farm. Put that in the live chat, and we're giving away another link for you to access and Leighton Morrison's composting chorus. So we'll give you guys another 5 minutes. So at 35 minutes in, so another 4 minutes and 10 seconds to have it put that in, and we'll carry on, Andy, and we'll let the people have a couple of minutes to put that in.
okay, dokie. So let me see if I can do this. Correcto mundo. Okay, so we're back. So I want to speed it up a little bit, okay? Because I only have a half hour. So these are the different layers: newspapers, cardboard. You want to layer with that. Definitely want to have some, and I also layer with biochar. One of the best things for them to use. So these are the European crawlers. You see, they're a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Right. See, they're a little smaller guys, and they also sell worm food, but you can basically feed them anything from your garden. They don't like anything spicy. What I do is when I go to the store and I buy specifically stuff for them. I get a banana, a good, clean, organic banana, of course, right? Organic apple. I basically cut both ends out and put it in there for them, and they could go right through it.
Yeah.
I was just going to cruise through it.
That's a nice worm ball.
Yeah. So see, what I would cut the cardboard up into strips, put them down, mix with the newspaper, and what happens is all this gets decomposed and it just sinks down. You have to keep adding it. So this is like after I had cleaned it up and I actually moved it to where I'm at now. And so I decided I'm going to start again. Doesn't make any difference what layer you start with, right? It doesn't make a difference as long as you alternate between a carbon source and a green source. Not necessarily a green source, but you know what I mean. Is sometimes manure. Sometimes you want to use compost. You definitely want to put some compost in there. With the newspapers, you don't want to use anything shiny, which has lead. Otherwise, the regular newspaper is totally organic in the sense that the worms eat right straight through it. Main thing you have to be careful with is anything if you're using tape. Those tapes right there says fragile. You got to take that off because that's not. They'll die if they try to eat that. And then you see, I put the screen right there. That works really well in terms of covering up the hole, and the worms don't get through it. I'm going to go a little bit faster. So you see and that basically this is stuff when I get from my yard, from my front yard, the pine needles. So they love all this stuff because it will decompose. The same thing like eucalyptus leaves that have dried out. So anything you use in your neighborhood, that's what you want to start throwing in there if you have a good source of stuff.
So anything you would use in your compost bin is what you mean?
Right. Anything that you normally would use in your compost bin to compost down, you can actually use that in your to feed the worms. And so I have some soil. I have some biochar there, and there's the worms. There's a couple of worms in there. I squished them. Let me see. So this is the layer. See, so you can see down in there, and you don't want to fall in there.
Okay. That looks like a long ways down from that camera angle.
Yeah, nobody will come and get you. So you see how how it eventually breaks up. It all breaks up really nice, provides a nice source, and there are the worms, happy. And so you can see another layer that I put down there in the bottom. And this is how it looks like where it's at now. Now, it has evolved again because this is a process of learning how to make this, how to make it better, right?
Yeah.
So as you get better at it, which I do, I've been doing this for so long that I have evolved, right? And how biochar is in there, right? This is an example of how much liquid I use on a twice a week, 3 times a week. And this came from was a small compost bin that I had in the garage. So you can make your own little worm farm. These are like stacked up, on each other.
Yeah.
So you don't need a giant system like this, just enough for your own use. So this has evolved a little bit. You see now it has a top on it.
Well, right now I put a top on the whole thing because we got the contest that we have to run through here. So, guys, here we go, and we'll see who gets it. And we're gonna have some other things coming up that we're going to be giving away. Hank
gets it.
Herbs. Okay, so you have to send me an email at itsallaboutthebiology@gmail.com or go to itsallaboutthebiology.ca or .com and put you the same space and do that there. You can send me an email there, but Hank, you got to send me an email in order to claim your prize. So Andy, sorry, we'll get back to you doing this, man.
So Scotty asked about Andy said that they eat meat. Can you add meat? Yes, you can add meat. He says, and then you will have a completely different kind of because when they meat, they attract these flies, which are like little grubs, right? So they're grubs that they attract. So you can use that. I myself don't particularly add the meat. Because you have to be real careful with how you do it, because you could have a lot of flies is what I didn't like. This is what my liquid looks like, and that's another secret you want to do is you want to aerate it. Simply by aerating it, you quadruple the biology in the liquid. Get it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so that's me, and you see I have little screens up here so the worms that comes through. And a little lid that falls down, and you see it's insulated.
Mm-hmm.
It's insulated because if it gets too hot or too cold, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You see the little holes in there so they could breathe. And I don't know what he's doing there. He says, "Yeah, there he is. That's me." And
now, Andy, just for a second, I want to go back to the meat because we can. I had another comment. Can you bury a fish? And I would say if you're going to use meat or fish or a meat source like that, because you can get salmonella, etc., from those components more, or you're at a higher risk. I would compost those first and have a finished compost before you added those. I wouldn't add them directly into your worm farm.
Good point. Yeah, I try to cover everything, but yeah, that's probably the main reason why you don't want to have these things directly in your worm farm. You want to let them go through the compost system if you insist on using it. I think a long time ago I don't deliberately use meat because there seems to have so many other different problems that can come along with it if you're not really doing it right. So when you're making compost, and it's heating up, you don't have that problem. But if you're going right through here, this is not going to heat up. You do not want it to heat up. It doesn't have no temperature, right? So you could be
if it heats up, you're going to kill your worms. And guys, there is a special cone-shaped composter specifically for composting meat that you can get. It's buried into the soil. And then it comes up in a cone, and you put the meat in on top. But that's very specifically for doing sources like that, your meats and that.
So I was visiting Michelle in Ojai, and she has some really amazing oak leaves everywhere. Right. So and oak is a specific oak leaf mold is very valuable. So it has its own biology. So I'm adding the specific biology to it. It's a wonderful addition to the worm farm. You always want to use things that have a very high biology level to it, So you can actually take sprouts and throw them in there if you have a lot of sprouts left over.
Oh yeah, and that would be fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's really goes a long way. There it is. See, Really goes, so it really adds. So you want to be bringing in as much biology as you can. They all get along really super well. And, also too, what I do sometimes when I get the leash, I re-pour it back in over again. And it comes out even stronger, even better than before.
Yeah.
So you see how it looks like? It imitates nature. That's what happens in nature. The leaves fall and they cover everything, right? And they eventually start to decompose. This will take me a few months for it to disappear. It literally will start to disappear. Then I got to put some more stuff on top.
Yeah.
And
now,
then here I am.
Have you started from one end, like building up in a slope and just slowly feeding, all the way through? Because I know there's some people that follow that methodology. Andy, have you ever done that?
No, so it's like cooking. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. You do whatever it makes you feel right, that works for you. I layer it evenly. I don't start on one end, and I read about that, but I just put one layer down, and that's what I do. And I'm going to take the sound off of this one and see what he has to say. Can you hear it? No, I don't hear it.
No, I don't hear it either.
Never mind. That's fine. I don't know what he's saying. This guy keeps showing up. I don't know what he's talking about.
That's strange. He's got a fuzzy face, though. He's kind of, girls think he's cute.
So yeah. I know that you're just trying to pick on me. Okay, so I think that would be the length of the video. So the bottom line. Oh, I can stop sharing. Yeah. Okay, let me go over here. So the bottom line is that you want to work with whatever is convenient for you. If you happen to have a really nice backyard and a place to do the worm farm, you can do a small worm farm. And ideally, that system that I have will provide biology for my whole yard easily enough.
Yeah, and then a lot more, because that's a lot of worms.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You have just a square little tote, and I was producing enough worm castings to do my entire property, using them as an extract. So that's different.
Right. So you can literally take what I've done when I started in Florida. I have to clean it out. So I go, I got a handful of this, which has earthworms and the eggs in it. I would bury them in the garden. I remember when people have the tree problems, I created this product. I call them tree vents, basically clay drain pipes. They're paramagnetic. So I would put them at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock around the tree, halfway between the trunk and the drip line. I found that by putting that mixture in there and making sure they get clean water, and I would spray in there, make sure they grow. If they grow, it affects the root systems of the trees, brings the hairs, the small little hairs back on the root systems of the trees. And as soon as that happens, the tree starts feeling better. The food, it gets the nutrition and the minerals that it needs. It really is amazing the way it works. And it doesn't matter what type of disease you get or what type of pest it happens, they go away.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you have the biology there, and you start to have a healthy tree or a healthy plant, the pests go away for some reason. Jeez.
Silly noticed that I had the volume off.
Yeah,
It figures she would notice that. It figures she would notice that, right?
That's pausing and zooming in, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I find that right. If you was to do worm farming, look up worm farming on YouTube. You're going to find literally 1,000 different variations on how people are doing it. There's one guy has a tower system that like shelves come up, big giant thing. He's got a little pump that circulates the water through and goes back out, and that pumps it hooks into the drip system. People are very, very creative. A lot of people are taking old bathtubs, old ones, the tubs you live in, you sit in, make a worm farm out of that, and so there are lots of different ways to make these things. And so you just have to, one guy uses a vortex. It's like a big vortex system. So the worms, the juice comes through, it goes into the worm, this liquid, and it just swirls around in a real heavy vortex, because anything in a vortex is actually very good. That's how Mother Nature does structured water. So you actually want to have structured water when you're using water. And so it's not that hard to do, because you definitely don't want to use city water.
No, because city water is going to kill the biology that you're looking to get out of it because of the chlorine.
And that's the
And
whole
other
purpose.
things.
Right. That's the whole purpose why they add stuff to it. They want to get rid. They don't call it the biology because they always say, "Well, we're going to kill the biology." Oh no, we're going to kill the bad bacteria. We're going to make it sterile so you can drink it. So it'd be good for you to take.
Yeah, it's going to kill your gut biology, but we're not going to tell you that. We're not going to tell you
Right.
it's not going to be healthy
And
for you.
it's full of forever chemicals in it, and it's also full of any type of medicine that happens to end up in the system.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff when you look through it. So you definitely want to filter the water out. Actually, you want to filter the water out when you're drinking. You don't drink city water. You get a whole proper filtration system. Whatever way you can clean the water out. If you're lucky to live next to a really cool stream that's coming up, you can use that water, and that water is already structured. Any water in the stream is already structured. So you want to be careful with the water. A lot of people are, I'm blown away. I'm going to get some water from my worm farm, and I'm going, do you have a filter on that? No. And then you asked me why the worms are not doing good. That's because the city water is toxic.
Yeah.
So that's important. So you want to set up that environment, and the method you make. This is just what I do. I'm sure somebody else, you can look on YouTube, you can find lots of other people who have their own little setup going there. And they're really, really smart. They're really cool, really inventive how they do it. Me, I'm lazy. I said, okay, this is the easy way for me to. It's actually really very easy because once you get it going.
How often do you actually have to clean the whole thing out? Send it through a Tremel or however you're doing. If you're shaping castings, or how often do you clean it out, Andy?
You're right. So good question. So that particular system that I have, definitely once a year. Because you can tell because it gets more and more compacted as it goes down. Mm-hmm. And eventually it comes up. It works its way up. So it's so compact all the way up to the top. You go, well, I guess I better change it because you can't add any more new mixtures to it. See, that's what happens. So you can't add more clippings or leaves or cardboard, because it's all the way up to the top. You go, well, I guess. So I usually do it when it's maybe halfway through, makes it easier to, rather than add more stuff, I just take everything out. I put it in a screen to try to get as much worms as I can, but because I want to put the worms back in again. It depends if I can do it, I'll put the worms in my garden and start all over again. Take some worm. All you need is a small amount of worms, and they double. So if you have 100, if you get one worm in a month, you're going to have 2 worms. In another month, you have 4 worms. In another month, you have 8 worms. Right? So you only need a small amount of worms to have. So that's why my farm right now is multiplying like crazy because nowhere you can touch it anywhere in there because it's full of worms. And it'll take me. Well, I started this one in February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. It's been 8 months already. You see, so I can't go down too far anymore because it has already all that bottom stuff. And I was often. In Florida, I actually used to sell that. What I would do is I get a cooking. It's a what when you cook in the oven, it's a parchment paper.
Yeah, parchment paper. Yeah.
So I take the parchment paper and wrap it up and sell it like that, and people can use it whether they make their own farm or whether they want to put it in their garden. It's very good for container plants. You do a little bit of put in container plants.
Okay, now you're talking the worm castings that you were putting in the parchment paper, or you were actually selling worms.
Yeah, so when I take the worms don't live in that. So as it starts to go up, the worms go up with you, so they leave this alone. But the castings are in there, and so it's very compact. The very bottom is very, very compact. So you look through there, you're not going to find any worms. So that's what I would sell.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I would take it and wrap them up. And if I was Rudolf Steiner, he would bury them. So and his thing was he would use a cattle stomach, a cow stomach. Okay. And he would add the plants in his formula to that, and they would the biology in the stomach will go into this mixture, and that's the product that he would use. He would make then a tea from that, a liquid from that. So that stuff is really, really wonderful to use in your garden and in healing your plants and healing your property out. If you have a little forest, you want to put it in there, so you see the worms will go nuts. If I was to take my mixture, any worms, and put it on any property that I'm working on, they will all die because the property is so toxic. You have the city water constantly sprinkling, right? Every day, every week, more and more of the bad stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's an uphill battle because everything's dying around you, and you're trying to have living worms, a living soil. That's what it's called, living soil. It's very important that we do that. And so for me, it's always been a battle of trying to, like I was just at the place, two places today. They both have identical problems. It's like solid. It's not soil when you have to have a pick to get at it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's
It's concrete.
It's concrete. It's literally like super hard. And the lady says, "Well, what do you think is wrong with my roses? What do you think is wrong with my trees?" And I'm going, and when I do my services, because Michelle is my business partner, she owns half of Invisible Gardener. She's learning too, but I tell people, okay, I do my part, you do your part, and when you do your part, that's dirt, not living soil. No, dirt is what you sweep out the house, sweetie. Dirt is what you sweep out the house. It's not soil. Okay? I remember saying that joke a long time ago. Dirt is what you sweep out your house. But this stuff it's actually called substrate. Normally, there's soil on top of it. Normally, there's a layer of soil on top. But we are so weird that we have literally stripped the top layer of soil off. Or you have the substrate.
That's what they told us that we were supposed to do, Andy. They told us, oh no, you do it this way. Now we're finding out that's the worst thing we could possibly do. But people have been programmed to take the lawn clippings off, to take the leaves off,
take the weeds off,
all that off. No, we don't want that. No. But in reality, we need all that.
Mother Nature is constantly trying to make soil. She's always trying to make soil. Whereas we guys, we have this belief that it's messy. Pull the weeds up and throw them away. Pull that. Don't let a leaf fall down. Yeah. Remember what we talked about? Chop and drop. They don't understand what is going on.
They don't even understand mulching properly.
Right, and so one of the ladies bought like a trailer load of wood chips, and she's throwing it on top. And I'm going, that does absolutely nothing. And I moved it over, and there's this thing. I was like, so what are you doing there? Oh, I thought I was putting some good for the soil. No. Normally, what you would do is that if you wanted to bring it back, you would buy a truckload of rich, clean, healthy soil. And you buy, ideally, you also buy some compost. Mix the two together. It depends on how they make. Because a lot of times, when I was young, I used to buy soil and different types of compost and blend them all together. Because the compost is not so much soil; it's too rich to be using. Normally, I tell people blend it in, buy compost, and when I sold my compost, I tell you blend it in with your soil. Because in Florida, they actually had soil. They had a nice layer of soil there. You couldn't dig down far enough, and most people have big farms, Sinotropic agroforestry. You want to say that 4 times?
Andy, do you know syntropic agroforestry? Andy, do you know syntropic agroforestry? Well, there's twice anyway.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it has something to do with the forest, and I have the feeling that it has to do with how this forest makes soil. Why don't you tell me, Sandra? Do you know what it is? I would ask Siri, hey Siri, and she'll tell me. But I turned her off now. But
syntropic is just a style, and of course, agroforestry is agronomy of forestry.
Right. So if you walk in a rainforest, you literally could be up to here in all the different leaves that falls down and all the different layers because it layers. All the leaves fall, different things. Animals will even die in there, right? And so you have all this amazing layer that breaks up, and nobody's over there churning it over or doing any of that stuff. It just gets layered. That's one reason why I do the layer. I try to imitate Mother Nature as best as I can, make layers, and let it decompose on its own. The worms know what to do. You don't have to tell them, "Hey, you're on the wrong floor here."
If you've got worms, okay, that's the key.
And I remember telling this one lady, and she knows who I'm talking about. She's here. I said, "I'll give you $100 for every earthworm you find." And I still tell people that to a certain degree, because that's part of the key to a healthy soil. If you don't have any worms in there, then you know something's wrong.
Yeah,
you know that
what do the worms eat, guys? They eat the biology. If there's no worms, there's no biology. You don't have a living soil.
That is exactly right. And so it all goes back down to there's so many different ways that you can do that the biology does, because it's a mixture of all these different things depending upon where you live, what's going on. Here in California, it's really not a tropical environment, and so people don't really have much soil to begin with already. It's like a desert environment. They have to start learning how to add more stuff to the soil. So they think that this is a regular soil. People say, "Look at my soil." I said, "I don't see any soil here."
Yeah.
But, the definition of soil can vary from people. If you're living in a desert, okay, so that's a different kind of soil, right? It's a different kind of soil layer there. That's not the same kind of soil layer. And even there, you may find, oh, hi, Michelle. Even there you may find that in the desert, you may find pockets of these where the worms will live, right? But they won't live out in a desert environment. It's too hot for them, right? They're not going to survive in that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So soil is different. So people keep asking me, "Well, I live over here. They don't have any soil." Then you have to figure out a way to make soil for your garden, because you need soil in your garden. You can't grow in the desert without soil. So you have to have soil. So I read a book called Lazy Man's Guide to Gardening. Okay, so that's basically a way you let Mother Nature makes a layer. So he would layer, and put the water underneath, and then on top of it, you make a layer of soil. Literally layer leaves and layer. That's how one of the things I learned is that this guy was layering. He would even go get old rugs that were thrown away, put it down, right? Clothing. He would put it down. Old shirts, whatever. He would make layers and layers of whatever, and it all decomposed down. And the worms were in there having a wonderful, wonderful time creating this environment that works for the biology.
Well, yeah, because you're not going to have worms without the biology, and you're not going to have biology or healthy biology without the worms. It's people don't understand. Like I say, it's all about the biology, but you've got the microbiology, which is you can't see other than a microscope, and then you got and the next layer is, I would say, a mini biology, which is like your arthropods, your worms. Then you go up in layers. Your macrobiology is Andy's elephant. All he wants is the shit from the elephant. Okay. But it's those layers, and they all work together. That's the beauty of Mother Nature. She put this system together. It took her millions and millions of years to do it. We're just trying to use it the best way we can. And Andy, worm farming is a fantastic way.
That's why they call it no-tilt farming. Don't break up the layers. You're destroying the layers that Mother Nature has set up for you. And each layer has different organisms in there. They have different structures. They do different duties. They do different jobs, right? They have different things that they do. And when you destroy that, you're destroying up the housing for the army to live in. And then you don't have you're going to be missing something, and you're going to have the problem. Lady I was there today, I said, "You still," and I'm finally going to, I tell him in person, but I think I'm going to start writing to him, take a picture. "You see this plant? You see that disease? It's overwatered. There's no soil for the poor plant." But the plant says, "Oh, you're back. I give me the food," because that's why I have foliar spray. I've learned I got to give it to them somehow until the root systems come to work. And if you don't start bringing in soil, I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to, okay, so this is how much I charge you. You don't bring any soil, I'm going to charge you more. But the problem is they're still going to have a problem They're still going to, like intravenous feeding, and you forget about your stomach. What's going to happen? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You got to
exactly.
eat. Your stomach has to be working. Astronauts are figuring out if we start eating this junk, right? We're going to have problems with our stomach, and we have problems with our stomach. We're going to die. So if you
Yeah,
want to
well, that's what happens in our bodies, Andy.
I would love it. I would love to be an astronaut who did the garden. You know, you see these shows where they have a big giant spaceship with a big greenhouse in it. I would love to do that because that's what they do. They're going to have to do that. They're literally going to have to learn how to have the biology, some kind of soil in the spaceships.
Yeah, basically.
They're going to have to learn how to do that because you cannot. We have evolved to do that. And so that's why I started the layer.
You can't have life without biology because it's the biology that is the driving force of cell division. And without that biology, there's no cell division. No cell division. I don't have skin on my body. I don't have organs because that's all cell division.
That's why the Earth is such a unique place because we talked about the water, we talked about biology, and what we talked about in soil, and it's all literally layered. Everything's layered on the Earth. Everything's been layered, and only us humans do not like the layering thing. We don't like layers. We tend to strip things down and do the weirdest thing.
Oh no! If you're up here in the north, Andy, you put layers on in the wintertime. You know,
so
people in the south, you don't have to worry about that.
So the age of man, that's a name for it, basically means plastic. So now there's a layer of plastic all over the Earth. So if you have aliens that come to Earth 10,000 years from now, and they're digging in, they're going to see a layer of plastic. And I forget geology. I forget what you call it. Where you look at for dinosaurs, they look at layers. They say this is a planet. This is this layer. This is this layer. That layer. This layer. Right? It's all Mother Earth layers everything, and she mixes everything up in a layer form. And you destroy that layer, you destroy the biology, and you're going to have problems. So, guys, next week we're coming up with a specific disease. What did we say we were going to do?
How to control peach leaf curl.
There you go. Because people have been asking, and that's what I was talking to these folks that they have peach leaf curl, and it's very simple. But if you ignore it, you can spray all you want to. Not going to solve the problem. Thank you for dropping in.
And for the channel, guys, I don't have a guest for Friday. I have the Grow Up Conference this weekend, which includes Monday. So there's no Soil Matters this coming Monday. So the next show is going to be Andy and I back talking about peach leaf curl next week. So we'll see you guys then. Peace out, everybody.
Peace out. Take care. See you later.